Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And lights out. 600 pages. Okay, there's a prologue here, which is this, what's up on the screen here. You can read that. It's not in the book. Later edition. Just, who cares? I'm going to read that, and then I'll see about reading it off of the tablet or just sit and reading it out of the book, because I could give me some feedback on that. I'm thinking I might be more distracted reading it off of the tablet, but I could probably I think I could have a page up on the tablet and read from the book, and I'll just see how it goes. Or I could just eliminate the on-screen DU recorder and just have it me reading. So I don't know how it's going to go. So that's about it. So since that's not in the book, I will read it off of the screen there, and you can follow along or whatever. But it's just kind of, it's a very brief, no, long drawn out, like James Michener type, going back to creation, and, take 3 chapters to build up to the fact that the earth is rotating in space, and then the blah, 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 Same thing with Lucifer Hammer, a lot of background in there. A lot of novels do that. They build up and build up and build up, and by the time, so this guy didn't do that. This was an afterthought because it's not in the book. So it just this theoretical scenario of a terrorist taking out the United States. So the old man looked at his gold Rolex. Any minute now, he thought, as he smiled to himself. It was all so ironic. He was killing off his best customers and using the money they paid him to do it. Yes, he was hurting his business, but he had more money than even his grandchildren could spend in their lifetimes. All of them, that was, except for his favorite grandson. The infidels had killed him in Afghanistan. Such an idealist. The young man reminded the rich oil man of himself when he was younger. It was so tragic. The young sheik was shot from afar by a cowardly sniper from the great Satan for trying to live up to his convictions. God. Well, now the United States and her whore allies would pay. The radicals that his grandson had been involved with would never be able to pull off anything like this. They had had some moments, like with the jetliners in New York, but they were mostly talk, and when they did strike, they struck at symbols. He was action. He had the means, and he knew what would hurt them the most. He would kill them all, and the best part was they would do all the killing themselves. He would just get the ball rolling. It had been so easy. 8 nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles that the former Soviet Union had reported as destroyed, and at only $5 million, soon to be worthless dollars apiece, they were quite a bargain. Then, $3 million for a Chinese scientist to tweak them for the desired effect. Of course, the scientist was smart enough to demand his payment in gold, but that was no problem. It was pocket change to the billionaire. The old man had already taken the tankers to deliver the payload. He had just modified them so that each one had a launch tube that would be very difficult to find, even if the idiots who imported his oil bothered to look. The smile on the old man's face grew bigger as the second hand swept around the dial. How long, he wondered, until all of the Westerners turned on each other once it was lights out. So, oops, Now, that's the other thing, too. See, I can make this bigger. Obviously, I've got it on a PDF file. I could screenshot it. That's another option. That would take a lot of screen shooting, and I don't think I really want to do that. So this is probably the best way to do it. And that's about as... There we go. Alrighty, I'm going to just read a chapter, maybe 2. By the way, I'm hopefully, Lord willing, if you hear this and you want to pray for me, pray. Going back, and the guy that's selling me a camper trailer has tomorrow free, and we're going to try to get it over here. So there's issues with it, the roof and the awning, but it's only an hour away, and it's got good tires on it, brand new tires, so it shouldn't be any issue at all. Axles, it's fairly new. Just major problems with the roof, so we'll see how that goes, and hopefully it'll be here, and then I'll have some place to live. All right, and rather than a tent. Damn it, he exclaimed. Mark turned red and cursed often, but he was pissed. It wasn't the fact that the lights went out that upset him. They did that 3 or 4 times a year in this older industrial section of town. What bothered him was with the UPS, the Universal Power Source unit, hadn't kept his computer running this time, and he had lost over an hour's worth of work. He picked up the phone to call computer support to bring him a new UPS and dialed their number with the help of the dim glow of the emergency lights. Nothing. He hung the phone up and then picked it up again, putting it up to his ear this time. No dial tone could be heard. Crap, he thought. Whatever happened took the phone system down too. Mark stepped out into the hall, and some of the other accountants were already there. Hey, Mark. Hey yourself, Jim. Jim Davis was Mark's closest friend at work. No one could have guessed it by looking at them. They were complete opposites. Jim was 6'3", 215 pounds, and had super jock written all over him. Mark was barely 5'9", 185 pounds, and starting to go bald. Despite holding a black belt in karate and being a pretty good runner, he looked like a computer nerd. The two of them had spent countless weekends together hunting and fishing, much to the chagrin of their wives. What's the matter, Jim asked. Oh, it's just that my ups went bad and I lost a bunch of work, Mark answered. That's strange. My ups went down too. Maybe they bought a bad lot of them. Well, hopefully we'll get to go home early with the power out and we can worry about it tomorrow. Now, Jim, Mark said, looking over the top of his reading glasses with a sadistic smile. You know that company policy says that we have to wait 30 minutes before we leave to see if the power comes back on, and you know that it will in 29 and a half minutes. That's got irritating too. Yeah, I guess you're right. After 5 or 10 minutes of discussing the upcoming football season, the guys were interrupted by Susie Smith, the office worrywart. Something is really wrong, she said. No joke, Jim replied. The power went out again. No, she answered, oblivious to the sarcasm. It's more than that. I went out to my car to listen to the news to see what happened. The radio won't work and the car won't start either. So I pulled out my cell phone to call my husband. It's dead too. It's dead, Jim. See, his name's Jim. It's dead, Jim. Probably your car battery is dead and the power outage knocked out all the close cell sites, Jim said. I don't think so. The car will turn over. It just won't start. And my cell phone is dead. D-E-A-D, dead. And I charged it up last night. Well, let's go take a look at your car, Mark suggested. When they got outside, Mark noticed that there wasn't a cloud in the sky and it was already starting to get warm outside. Man, said Mark, it's not even 10 o'clock yet and it's already hot. Yeah, Jim replied with a big smile. That's what I like about South Texas. You never have to wonder what the weather is going to be like. In August, when they got to Susie's late model Mustang, Mark asked her to pop the hood. Now try and start it. Susie turned the key and the motor turned over but would not catch. See what I mean? Susie said mostly to Jim. Mark reached down and pulled the plug wire loose and held it close to the engine block. Try it one more time, Susie. Susie engaged the starter again. Okay, Susie, that's enough. What's wrong with it, she asked. Well, I don't know exactly why, but you don't have any fire. What do you mean? You see, you only need 2 things for an engine to run, fuel and fire. Gas and an electrical spark to ignite it. In other words, and you don't have any spark. Why not? I don't know, Suze. I'm just an accountant. Look at that, Jim shouted, pointing to the north. There were 4 distinct columns of smoke rising into the air. 3 were in the direction of the airport, and 1 was further to the east. One of the columns, the one that looked closest to the airport, was significantly bigger than the other 3. I'm thinking that Susie is right. Something is really wrong, Jim exclaimed. He looked at Mark. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? EMP? Jim nodded his head. What's EMP? Susie asked. It stands for electromagnetic pulse, Jim told her. It's a byproduct of a nuclear explosion and it knocks out electronics in the blast area. You mean we've been nuked? Susie stammered. Let's not jump to any conclusions, Mark advised. We obviously haven't taken a direct nuclear hit, or we wouldn't be standing here. Jim, go try your car, and I'll try mine. As Jim walked toward his car, Susie followed Mark to his Jeep. Well, if it's not EMP, what else could it be? Oh, God, this is bad. I have to get home. What if we were nuked and we just don't know it yet? What if... Suze, calm down. We don't know enough to even guess what's going on, and panicking is not going to help no matter what. Rule number 1 is survival. Don't panic. Be where you are at. Jim tried the Jeep, but just like Susie's car, it would turn over but not start. Jim had hoped that since it was a 1978 model and didn't have a computer, that it would be okay. My truck won't start either, Jim said as he walked up. What do we do now? Susie asked. Let's go back to my office and see if my portable radio will work, Mark answered. When they got to Mark's office, he opened the bottom desk drawer and pulled out a small radio. He turned it on, and all they heard was static. Well, at least it comes on, Jim stated. Why wouldn't my car radio work? Susie whispered. If we got hit by an EMP, it probably burned out your car radio, but this one may have been protected some by the building and by Mark's metal desk. Try 1200, Mark. Mark rolled the dial to 1200. This is the emergency alert system. Please tune to 6:40 a.m. for further instructions. This is 1200 a.m. Broadcasting on reduced backup power. This is emergency alert system. Please tune to 6:40 a.m. for further instructions. This is 12 a.m. broadcast. Mark spun the dial to 6:40. 5 minutes. This is the emergency alert system. Please stand by for an important announcement in 5 minutes. This is the emergency alert system. Mark turned the volume down. I guess we'll know what's going on in 5 minutes. As word got around that Mark had a working radio, his office began to fill up with people asking all kinds of questions and telling everyone what they thought was going on. When his office could hold no one else, Mark suggested that they all go to the break room. People kept pouring into the break room. After 5 minutes, Mark turned the radio up. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, my fellow Americans, as you know, 27 minutes ago the power went out. Also affected were most of the communication and transportation systems in the continental United States, most of Canada, and parts of Mexico. This seems to be the effect of a large EMP burst. We are not sure at this time of the source of the burst, and we do not know if it was accidental, an act of God, or a malicious attack. We do know that the burst is not the result of a nuclear attack. I repeat, we have not been attacked with nuclear weapons. As many of you know, the President and most of his cabinet were en route to his ranch in Texas on Air Force One. Since the burst, we have not had any contact with them. Oh my God, the President is dead, someone in the room cried. Shh, many replied. I am assuming command until we can contact the President. I am activating all of the reserve units of the military until we can determine the cause and source of the EMP burst. I'm asking all of the state governors to call up the National Guard to help local authorities until we can get the power back on. All off-duty police, fire, and emergency personnel should report for duty as soon as possible. I am asking all other Americans to remain calm and try to get to your homes. Most of your vehicles will not run until the electronics have been replaced. If you have a running vehicle, please help your friends and neighbors to get to their families. FEMA will be setting up shelters in the major cities for those of you who cannot get home. Now, you can get information on these shelters here on these EAS stations as it becomes available. Our first priority is to get the power, communications, and transportation systems back online as quickly as possible. However, it may take a day or two to get the power back in the major cities, and the rural areas may take a little longer than that. Please stay in your homes and follow the instructions of your local authorities. I am imposing a curfew for all Americans effective at dark. This is an emergency that we Americans have not had to face before. I know that if we pull together, just as we did on September 11th, we will emerge from this stronger and wiser as a nation. We will keep you updated as soon as possible. Thank you for your cooperation, and God bless. This is 6:40 a.m. We'll be back in a moment with a list of FEMA shelters for the city. The city, yeah, right. Mark turned the radio off. What are we going to do now? Someone yelled. Everybody just simmer down now. Todd Rosenberg, the company CEO, instructed as he stepped up on a chair so everyone could hear him. I would like to meet with all the department heads in the conference room in 5 minutes. Is Tom Baskins here? Right here, Todd. Good. Tom, will you go see how many of the delivery trucks will run and then come to the conference room? On my way. Okay. Everyone else, please go out and see if your car will start. If it will, come back and give your name and where you live to Mark Turner here. If it won't, don't panic. We'll find a way to get you home. Come back to the break room or go wait in your office and just relax. Everything is going to be okay. Almost everyone made a mass exit toward the parking lot. Mark, can you get a pad and write down where everyone lives whose car will run? Sure thing. And do you think you can dig up a map of the city? I have one in the Jeep. It's over there. Great. Just try to keep everyone calm, okay? Okay, Todd, just one question. Yes? Who's supposed to keep me calm? Todd smiled at the joke and then turned and walked toward the conference room. That's enough. Give me some feedback. In fact, that's about as big as that gets, I think. Yeah. I know what I'm going to do. I'll do chapter 2 the other way.